something fun for once because we're always very conservative on the show. Let's do a same game parlay. So we've already got your legs. Commanders money line. What was the tease total? Over 37.5?
Yes.
And then let's do some props. So what are your favorite props for this game? We kind of threw this one out here. Sam Howell over his rushing prop. It's 13.5. Do you think this is a good leg for our same game parlay?
Yes. We saw it open at 12.5 at some spots. Then it went up to 13.5. But you just have to feel Sam Howell is very adept at running the ball. And one thing that he has had an issue with is, at least early in the season, he was much better at it last week, is holding on to the football for too long. Sometimes he doesn't throw it away, or he just holds on to the football. And last week we saw, hey, Sam, if nobody's open, either throw it away or take off because he can run. I see a lot of people on this prop bet. I think it's low. He eclipsed it last week. I think it's a very good bet, even at 13.5. I know it's only moved a point. Sometimes that's significant, particularly when you're talking about quarterback rushing props. Yeah, I like that a lot.
I like the way that it's trending because no, he hasn't hit this in every game, but the trends are going upward. He had 6 carries in that game against Philadelphia, which is way up. He only had 1 against the Bills and 2 in his other 2 games. So it feels like he is gaining confidence when running the football. I know that game went to overtime, was a little bit different. Maybe this game isn't as close, but still, I think I would take the over on that. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the same game parlay when it comes to props? Because keep in mind, even if you don't like the real number, if we are doing a same game parlay, you can do 10 yards off. If you like somebody's rushing prop, for instance, you can take like an alternate number, even though it wasn't the point of this to not be conservative. God, we're the worst.
I would look at Brian Robinson, B-Rob, and maybe a rushing prop for him, maybe a rushing attempts prop, just because he has gotten better over the past year, which is something that totally makes sense. He was the victim of a carjacking last year. He got shot twice, so he came back, which is miraculous in and of itself. But he was never 100%. Now he has a burst to go with his physicality. He's always been a very physical runner. And late in the game, think about it this way. If you're talking about game script, I expect the Commanders to be ahead and the Bears playing from behind. What are the Commanders going to do? They're not going to throw the ball. They're going to feed B-Rob. Why is it, do you think, that the Commanders' defensive front, which for a couple of years now, we've sort of waited to sort of be that defensive front that is, impenetrable, but we really haven't seen it just yet. And that's why this defense has given up so many points over the past 3 outings.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's kind of frustrating at times. I mean, I think their linebacker situation is still dicey at best. They usually just play with 1 or 2 linebackers in the field anyway. But that's really never been a position they've invested in since drafting Jamin Davis. They've just kind of gone on the bargain basement hunt on that. The secondary is still a work in progress. I mean, I just think the scheme this past week was weird. I mean, Jack Del Rio in the past has not traveled players to follow matchups. He did that with a rookie in Emmanuel Forbes against A.J. Brown, and obviously they paid the price for it in that football game. So that was kind of an interesting decision. And also, as you know this, Jenks, because you've seen this team up close as well, they, for whatever reason, in the time Ron Rivera has been here, they get off to really slow starts defensively. This is the first year, like they've kind of, look like they might not fall into like a 2-6 hole just based on the schedule that's ahead. But the defense has given up 30 plus points in 3 straight weeks, and they were supposed to be the strength of the team while this offense was trying to figure it out. But so far, even with that terrible game in Buffalo, the offense, has actually looked like the more trustworthy of the 2 groups at this point, which isn't saying a whole heck of a lot, but that's kind of where they are right now.
But listen to these trends that makes me want to buy in on the Steelers. Mike Tomlin is a home dog, 14-3-1 against the spread. In the last 30 meetings, the underdog between the Steelers and the Ravens, 21-6-3 ATS. And the Steelers as underdogs against the Ravens, 11-2-2 against the spread since 2007. So I'm liking those trends. Talk me off of the near-death experience of betting on the Steelers this week.
Yeah, I'm going to talk you out of it because we have seen massive losses, big double-digit, in some case, routes, blowout losses become all the more common, unfortunately, with the Steelers team over the last 4 to 5 years. When they lose, especially this year, they lose big. Now, I will say, Four is a number that's very tempting in a game where the total's sitting at what, like 38. It's going to be tight. It's, I'll get cliched on you. AFC North football. These teams play tight games. Lamar Jackson performs worse against no one else in the league than he does the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the only team that he has played at least 4 times and not rushed for a touchdown against. It's the only team he's played against who he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns against. It's the only team he's lost more to than he's won against. The Steelers are Lamar Jackson's kryptonite. I'll grant you that. But this Steelers offense is such a disaster right now. I have a hard time believing that this is the spot against this set of linebackers, against this team where they get right even at home. This is the same team that concussed Kenny Pickett last year. This is the same team that 3 years ago had Mason Rudolph getting dragged off the grass with his face mask detached. I mean, these games are physical. They're brutal. And while the low score, I think, is a distinct possibility, the under, even at 38, is tempting. And that, therefore, gives you the idea to maybe look at 4 points as too wide of a spread in such a tight game. I just can't trust the Steelers' offense right now, guys.
Both of these teams have incredible offenses and starting pitching rotations that can kind of give up a few runs. So once we see a total put on this game, I feel like this is going to be an over series. And you've got to remember that these games are going to play a little bit different than the wild card series because these are 5-game series now, if I am not mistaken, as opposed to 3. The games aren't quite as tense and quite as meaningful. Still a 5-game series, every game counts, but it's not as urgent as when you need to win 2 games to advance. So that's my initial read on Texas and Baltimore. I would like to see the Orioles advance, but I would not be shocked if the Rangers offense continues plowing along. Do you have a good read on that series? I feel like I don't.
I don't either, but you know what, Chelsa? I'm just going to keep riding the Orioles train. Orioles magic. Remember that? That was a thing for a long time, and I believe in Orioles magic. And, one thing I will say about the Orioles is that if you're looking at strengths versus weaknesses, we know they can hit the ball. A bunch of young kids are going to be smacking the baseball around Camden Yards. Here's the thing. I think there's a possibility that their pitching could be better than expected. That's not how they're going to win games, but Kyle Bradish, if you look at his numbers, surprisingly good. I was giving him a hard time on this show. He's been exceptional this season. G-Rod has been great in the second half of the season. I remember, in fact, it was against Texas. I was at that game where he got absolutely crushed. I was at a bachelor party, Camden Yards, midseason, sitting in the outfield. We're in a little box area, and he was getting crushed. They sent him down to the minors. He got right. He's been great ever since, been a moneymaker ever since. John Means coming back off Tommy John surgery, so maybe he's a guy that can add some experience to that rotation if he continues to improve. I think their pitching could be better than expected. Certainly, they're the higher seed for the reason. I like Baltimore. I'll take him at -110 to win the series just because it's a coin flip. And here's the thing. Baltimore hasn't led us wrong all season. The Bengals are +220 to make the playoffs. This is maybe the most fascinating bet of all because we're talking about a team that is, at full strength when Joe Burrow is healthy, when they're playing well, can make a case, or at least could in the past couple seasons, being as good as anyone in the National Football League. But now they're +220 to make the postseason. Would you take a flyer on the Bengals?
I think I would. And I feel stupid saying that because how many times does the team have to show you what they are before you say, okay, maybe it's time to give up? But in order to get a wild card in the AFC, I just feel like there are no other teams that are kind of running away with it because there are multiple wild cards. It's not just going to be whoever comes out of the AFC East because you look at the division winners. So like the Bills, the Ravens, somebody in the AFC South, and then the Chiefs. So like those 4 teams, you don't really have to worry about that, about those teams. The teams that the Bengals will be competing with, nobody is better than 2-2 other than the Dolphins. Like we've already given them a spot, it feels like. But, you're only 1 or 2 games back from teams like the Steelers and the Jags and the Chargers, and the Raiders are 1-3 as well. So it just feels like they are not that far behind when it comes to getting a wild card spot. They're probably not going to win the division, but I do think that they have a chance to still make it in the AFC postseason picture.
I don't know. I think you're right. I just don't. When you talk about the health of certain players, we just don't. It's amazing to me. We don't really know what's going on with Joe Burrow. We know he's injured. There's no question about that. He's not 100%. But how injured is he? I don't know. I feel like that's the old school joke. Joe Burrow is injured. How injured is he? He's so injured the Bengals might miss the playoffs. That kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know. But I feel like he's more injured than even the Bengals are letting on. I just don't know if I believe in them or not.